Welcome to another episode of the Butterfly Mindset Podcast.
Left late night, what a mess. We woke up and we're still obsessed. Can't keep it straight night and day. We keep it classy, still we stay.
Welcome to another episode of the Butterfly Mindset Podcast. Today we have Adam Brawer. Thank you so much for making it down to Orange County, brother.
Thank you for having me.
I appreciate it. And you brought gifts.
Indeed.
I love gifts. My love language is giving and receiving gifts. So you win.
My pleasure.
So, I'm really excited about this conversation because when we first spoke, you had reached out, we had talked, and then I looked into what you're doing, and I mean, even just some of the states that we were talking about right before this are, gorgeous. Some of those beautiful properties in the world. People dream of being able to sell that type of real estate. I think people also don't realize like what it takes to do that.
Yeah.
Right? So before I get into all of that, I want to go all the way back to like, how did you even end up in real estate?
Great question. So born and raised in Brooklyn, moved out to LA about 21 years ago. The plan was never to get into real estate. Just wasn't the plan. I moved out here to work at WME, talent agency. Started producing film and television. Had a pretty good run. And in 2019, I had a series of setbacks. I was obviously never Me Too'd, but I was in business.
You wouldn't have been here if you were.
I wouldn't be here right now. But unfortunately, I was in business with several people. I had just sold a big movie with Seth Rogen to Harvey Weinstein. Seth Rogen, Ben Stiller, right before he got Me Too'd. I was in business with Brett Ratner, the director of the Rush Hour movies and huge producers, right before he and Russell Simmons got Me Too'd. And the last straw for me was I had a film, it was called Runaway with Me. Sold it to Amazon, took place in Paris, was in Paris, location scouting just before we were about to shoot it. And I had cast Amber Heard right after Aquaman, which was $1 billion movie. Everything was looking amazing.
Yeah.
And the Johnny Depp divorce scandal completely imploded the film. She got blacklisted, and I had 2 weeks to replace her. Could not replace her. Missed my flight back from Paris to LA. Last flight of the day, and I was like, you know what? I'm almost having an existential crisis right now. I'm going back to tell my business partner we've lost millions of dollars.
Yeah. Just a little bit.
Just a little bit. Telling our investors some news they don't want to hear. And I was like, you know what? I don't want to rush this conversation.
I wouldn't either. You're like, why am I taking a direct flight home? Forget this.
I was like, I might go the other way. So I went to Iceland. And I got really quiet with myself. I went solo. It was the summer. Sun doesn't set, basically, maybe an hour or two a day. And I was in a really uncomfortable place. I was deeply concerned. I had invested about 85% of my portfolio in this film company to start it with a partner.
Your personal portfolio?
My personal portfolio. My partner was pretty wealthy at the time. I was not.
Yeah.
So big risk. And I just realized, I knew that, okay, this is like the last straw. And so for years, as a film producer, you are constantly dealing with crisis, just constantly, similar to a realtor,
Sounds kind of like real estate.
Almost identical.
Synonymous.
Yeah. And so in film, there are so many variables that, like, consider this metaphor. It's like archery. You're shooting an arrow through 100 windows that have to be open at the same time.
Yeah.
If one window closes, and so when you're dealing with movie stars, they can do whatever they want on any given day. And oftentimes that means deciding not to do your movie maybe. Or maybe they get a Marvel movie and your $10 million independent film is like, you know what? How about next year?
Yeah.
And so for years, even when things were pretty good, I was constantly like on edge because I knew at any moment the rug could be pulled. I get a phone call, someone's not available, something happens, whatever. I mean, I had James Gandolfini's next film right before he unexpectedly died.
Wow.
And it's like, in real estate, if someone passes away, tragic, but probably means a sale.
Yeah.
In film, it means the death of your film. So I was like, I'm done. I'm done being anxious. I'm done not having control over my future. I had no real sovereignty over my life because I wasn't, even though I was making my own decisions, actors were making the big decisions.
Yeah. Your success was defined by someone else's actions.
100%. Yeah.
Which is
insane.
Never a good recipe.
No.
Yeah.
I was like, how am I going to like support a family this way?
Yeah.
So I flew to Iceland solo, and I got really quiet with myself, and I was like, listen, I never want to be in this position that I'm in right now ever again. I feel like out of control. I feel kind of desperate and just nervous and just so much anxiety. And so I started to think, okay, well, what am I capable of doing? Got a college degree, but I've always been entrepreneurial. Even in college, I was booking concerts, and I was just like, what? I was like, I know I can sell. My specialty in film was I would go into studios and I would pitch them with a writer and sell them movies. And these are executives who, it's very similar to a listing presentation. Yeah. But it's much, much, much more difficult because you're pitching executives who are paid to say no. Like Universal, the executives in place, if they, greenlight or greenlight into development 20 movies and like one of them gets made, they get fired. So they're going to ensure that they're saying yes only to the best. Yeah. And so I was like, what else can I do where I can flex that muscle? And I talked to my college, I went to the University of Miami. My college roommate had gotten into real estate right as I was graduating, and actually right when I moved out, we were in this beautiful building on West and 10th, right on the water, stunning. It was our rental. They converted it into condos. He bought it with no money down, flipped it in like 15 days, made $100,000, no money down. He was like, get your license, just get it, just get it. Just do it, yeah. And then I talked to a friend in New York who actually trained Ryan Serhant. They went to the same college. His name's Jason Paulino. I met Jason because he signed me up for Equinox out here. He's like, I want to get into the movie. He left real estate to get in the movie business. Yeah, yeah. Then he moved back to New York and got back in real estate. He was like, just get your license, Adam. Like, you'll be good at it. And I was studying. I was like, I'll do this in the meantime. Yeah. I'll do this for a couple years until I really figure out what I want to do. And so I got my license December 2019 on my birthday, actually. And I had a choice. I was like, okay, the entertainment industry shuts down in December, period. I can either take a great trip, go to Bali for like a month, chill out, have a last hurrah, and then like suit up and get back to town and get to business, or I can just jump into real estate. And now probably is a good time because I've got all the time and I'm, blah, blah, blah. So I decided to jump right in.
So you're in Iceland and you're like...
I'm in Iceland. I'm like, I don't know. I'm like, okay, I'll study, but what am I going to do? Like, I need to, like, I've always defined myself by what I do. Yeah. So it wasn't just like, I'm going to get a job. It's like, all right, everybody knows me as a producer. Now I have to go back and be like, no, I'm a realtor. Yeah. So like when I first got my license, I never made like an announcement officially or anything, but I was having conversations and I talked to a friend and he's like, what do you put on your business card? And I was like, I'm a realtor. And he wasn't like making fun of me, but he was like kind of poking fun at me. Yeah. And I was like, I'm not really available for this feedback, homie. Yeah. You want to buy a house? I sold him a house 2 years ago.
Hell yeah. So like, and I'm gonna stick on something here, and then we'll come back here. But you're obviously going through an identity crisis.
Big time. Yeah.
How did you deal with that?
Some therapy for sure. I right as I made the decision, my friend Nicole, who's really big into personal development, she got me Joe Dispenza's book, Becoming Supernatural. And I already had like a morning practice where I would do breath work and I would meditate and stuff like that. And so when I came back, I was like, okay, she gave me his guided meditations. And I was like, okay, I'm going to do my breath work, change my state. Tony Robbins says state before strategy.
Yep.
So I was like, I'll change my state and then so every single morning I did my breath work and I listened to Joe's meditation and I would like deeply feel into how it would feel I started really small. I wasn't like, I want to sell huge, I didn't at that point believe that I was going to be selling $50 million homes. I was like, I just want so the first meditation, the first reality that I would create for myself was me getting out of a beautiful new car, fly threads on at Soho, Malibu, treating all my friends to a beautiful celebratory dinner because I just closed the sale.
Yeah.
So every morning I would live into that reality. I would feel it. It felt awesome. I would do it day in and day out for months. I probably started in September, October. Got my license in December. So I'm a few months in.
Yeah.
And now I'm in the business and I don't really know what I'm doing.
Yeah. Checks out.
No experience at all.
Yeah.
I had one friend in the business who was kind. I called him up. I kind of called him up because I was like, maybe he'll offer me to join his team.
Yeah.
At least offer me some advice. He offered me some good advice. Thankfully, he did not offer me to join his team, in hindsight. And so I was like, okay. The sales manager, I joined Rodeo Realty initially. And the sales manager was like, sit open houses. And so I talked to our title rep and I was like, who does the most business at the brokerage? And he was like, talk to these 6 people. I talked to all of them, or like 12 people. I called all of them. Most people didn't call me back. I talked to 2 people. One guy seemed cool. One guy was like, hey, I got an open house in Brentwood. You want to sit it? I was like, cool. It was a weird open house because it was in Mountain Gate, which is gated. It's technically Brentwood, but it's really like Encino.
Yeah.
And it's just kind of stuffy. And there was a woman who was sitting it already. And the agent was like, she needs a male agent to be there with her. And I was like, okay. And I found out the reason why is because she had been raped at an open house.
Oh my gosh.
Yeah, I didn't know that at the time. And so like I'm there's a lot of nervous energy in the house, obviously. And I've never sat in an open house before, so I don't really know what's going on. She's like, don't talk to the guests, I'll do that. And I'm like, am I security? What the fuck is going on here?
Why am I here?
Why am I here? And the other agent who I had talked to who was like, hey, you can sit at another open house for me. He was like, hey, I just got a call on one of my signs. There's this guy who's in town, wants to see property today. $1 million, condo, blah, blah, blah. This could be we'll split it. It could be an easy way for you to make 10 grand. And I was like, my ears perked up. I was like, oh,
10 grand?
Cool.
Hell yeah.
10 grand right now. Let's go. So I told the other agent, I was like, I'm so sorry, but I have to leave this house. Like this is my only client, you know? I told her that. She was furious about it. Then the other agent called me and was like, hey, I hear you're leaving the open house. And I was like, I am. And here's why I'm doing it. And if you never want me to sit in an open house, I totally get it.
Yeah.
I left, toured a bunch of homes with a guy. When I dropped him off, I was like, hey, I'd love to work with you. He's like, I would love to work with you. He was like 80 something, his wife had just passed away. Tragically, he passed away. We wrote an offer on a place, and tragically he passed away like a week later.
Gosh.
Just crazy. But so that was my first entrance into the business. And in the first 30, 40 days, I did a few small leases, $3,000 a month leases, got paid no money. But it was fast. And in the movie business, you can spend 5, 10 years and I can't tell you how much time and how many thousands of emails, and then the movie doesn't get made.
Yeah.
And then you got nothing. And so I was like, wow, this is a fast business. It's exciting. I never know. I remember the second open house I sat was a $5 million open house, and today probably $7 million, beautiful new construction. And as the people would sign in, I would like Google them, and like I was like, oh, this guy who just came in like just got robbed for like $100,000 Audemars in New York, and he was like, I don't know how much I can say here, but he was basically robbed by prostitutes.
What?
And he came in with his wife, and I was like, oh, that's his picture. Oh, that's him. Oh, so she knows he's been.
That's
And I was like, this is kind of fun. I was like, I like this. I was like,
Get
I
all the
li-
tea.
Yeah, I got all the tea. I was like, this is cool. It's like adventures in real estate.
Yeah.
And then I started doing business with some of my friends in the film business. And so like the first like really, it was like the second really nice listing I got. It was a home in the hills behind Chateau Marmont. It was this film producer, financier from Europe who I had done stuff with before. I went in. Originally I was like in Tulum at a wedding, so it was like a Zoom listing presentation, which was kind of weird and whatever, blah, blah, blah. I ended up getting it. And right after I got it, his house manager just like gave me other like listing presentations. And one of them was Aaron Kerman, actually. One of them was Tammy Pardee, some others. And I was like, why are you giving me these? And she was like, oh, these are like the other agents who like interviewed for the listing. And I was like, why did you choose me? I was like, why did you choose me?
Yeah.
I'm just so like shocked.
Yeah.
You know? And they were like, well, you showed up on time. You were really enthusiastic about the house. And he could tell, or the owner's name is Adrian. Adrian's like, I could tell you would make this top priority. And honestly, your pitch was actually better. And I was like, then it clicked for me. I was like, oh, the skill set of a great producer is the same as the skill set of a great realtor.
Yep.
Different product, doing the same thing.
Yeah.
So then I was like, at that point, I was like, I got this. And then I was like, this is not a temporary thing. This is who I am.
Yeah.
And then I started to shift where originally I was like wearing really nice suits, even though I was like showing $3,000 a month rentals.
Yep.
But that really, I like wearing nice suits, but you know, I was like, I'm just going to be more me. So I'm going to wear hats. I'm going to, you know, wear t-shirts if I want.
Yeah.
I'm going to do whatever I want to do. And the more comfortable I am, the more fun my clients have, the more successful I become.
Well, exactly. It's a relationship business, right?
Yeah.
So like people work with people they like.
Yes.
And it's when don't wear a suit every day and you're hanging out, it's like hard to have fun with somebody that's like, oh, they're like pristine and perfect.
Yeah.
I don't want to say the wrong thing
So-
around
so
it.
tight.
Yeah. You know, and like I mean, this is how I go to my appointments, you know? It's like that's what we do. Like it's because this is who I am.
Yep.
If you don't vibe with me, you don't vibe with me. That's
Totally-
okay.
totally cool.
We're not the right fit.
Yeah.
I'll go find someone that's the right fit.
Yeah.
There's a lot of business out there.
A lot of business out there.
So from start, so from getting your license to that listing, what was that timeline?
So I got my license December 2019. That listing was like March of 2020.
Okay.
My timing, I was really lucky because they dropped rates in 2020. So kind of, you know, there was this one open house in Culver City where I got like my first buyer client. It was miraculous that I ended up like working with her as a buyer on this other property. It was a total teardown. There's 0% chance this would have passed any sort of appraisal, except it happened to be April of 2020 when everyone was so scared. They did a drive-by appraisal. I've never heard of that.
Yep.
The guy never even walked in the
Remember when
house.
they started doing that, yeah.
None of the systems worked in the house.
Yep.
She tore it down anyway and built something beautiful. But so I ended up closing that, and you know, I shared that buyer client with the agent who's open. I sat.
Yeah.
And he was just like, he's a very successful agent, and he's like, wow, this is big. He's like, this is like 3-4 months in the business, like you're gonna do well. And so, you know, the first listing I got was February of that year, where the same agent was like, listen, a friend of mine's wife is looking to sell her place, Canoga Park. It was like $600,000.
Yeah.
She has her real estate license, number one. She's never listed anything. And whether or not she knows it, she needs help. Like she has no idea what she's doing.
Yeah.
Let's meet with her. Let's get the listing. And I started doing the math. I was like, wait a second. I was like, well, what cut is she getting? He's like, well, I already had a preliminary talk with her and she would keep 80%.
What?
I was like, wait, so, and then you and I would each get 10% of 2.5%? So I was like, that sounds horrible.
Yeah.
And he's like, don't do it for the money. More opportunities will come from this listing.
Yeah.
I didn't have any listings, so I was like, I've never even been on a listing appointment. Yeah. So I'm like, okay. I roll up 5 minutes. I get there like 5 minutes early. I call him. I'm like, hey, are you close? He's like, oh, I forgot to tell you, I can't make it.
Good move.
So I'm like, okay, I've never been on a listing appointment before. I don't have a presentation ready. I don't even have a book. I thought he was bringing it. So I was like, okay. Walked in the door. I was like, this house is mine. So I was like, okay, this is the strategy. This is how I would price it. You know, I can't even remember what I told her. And at the end, I was like, my photographer is available on Wednesday or Thursday. Like, what day is best for you? And she was like, let's do Thursday. I was like, great, because I know I own these photos now. So whether or not she signed it prior, this is my listing.
Yeah.
Listed it, you know, February of 2020. Ended up getting like slightly an offer just above ask, like the minute before we opened the open house. I got to the open house 15 minutes early. There were, no joke, 20 people waiting in front, for real. And I didn't realize that was unusual because I've never had a listing before.
Yeah.
So I'm like trying to get my stuff together, blah, blah, blah. A couple comes in and they were like, we love the house. We're ready to pay full ask and we want you to represent us. And I was like, wow, I'm flattered. And we just got this offer in. We just sent it to the seller, you know, via DocuSign.
Yeah.
They're probably going to accept it. I'm so sorry, but like, you know, you're probably not going to get it. They called me that night and they were like, hey, you're so honest with us. Like, thank you so much. We still want to buy a house. Would you work with us? Of course. They were like, also, our mom is looking to sell her house. Would you be interested? Of course. Listed and sold the mom's house, helped them buy a house like within a month, then helped their cousin buy a condo. And things just really started to roll. I started to build momentum, and a very close friend of mine was like, listen, our other friend who I think I had met him, has this villa. It used to be 100-acre like walnut farm at the turn of the century in North Hollywood. Now it's like surrounded by apartment, but it's like on almost an acre, stunning Italian villa, amazing, like $4 million. And that was the first big listing that I got, and that was like August or maybe it was September of 2020. And when I got that, that's when I was like, okay, this feels big.
Yeah.
I did not sell that, but I rented it for $20,000 a month. And that's when I was like, okay, I mean that's when I knew this is what I was going to do was when I got the one in April of 2021. But this one in August of 2020 was when I was like, I know I have what it takes to like make this happen.
Yeah. It's an interesting thing because like I try to explain to a lot of agents, even just talking about luxury, just talking about real estate in general, like it's all relationship.
Yeah.
Right? It's all relationship. And then people are like, yeah, well, I don't have all these crazy connections. But like what you did with I think you said it was in Encino? Was it Encino?
The first open house?
That open house, yeah.
Yeah, it was Encino Brentwood. It's basically Encino, yeah.
No, the one that Culver, where was it? I don't know, with the property that the couple came in.
Oh, that was in Canoga Park.
Canoga Park.
Yeah.
Okay. So the Canoga Park, like you weren't getting paid much on that listing.
I made $750 on that.
But what I always tell people is like every listing you should be able to leave with another buyer and another listing.
Yes.
If you do it right.
Exactly.
And so I'll take that listing knowing that I will create these other relationships.
Yep.
But I think a lot of people, they get into this business and they want to just make the money right now. Mm-hmm. So they pass up on an opportunity like that.
Yep.
Because easily you could have been like, dude.
I almost did. I was like, I was insulted. I was like, do you think who do you think I am?
Yeah.
I make movies.
Yeah.
Like,
have you seen my track record? But the reality is then you did that, and then that created XYZ income.
Yep.
Which then gives you the not the confidence, but the track record that your friends see that say,
Yes.
okay, he's
doing it.
He's not just saying he's a real estate agent because he's failed at XYZ, right?
Totally.
Like he's like, okay, he's actually doing well.
Yes.
And then, hey, my friends need to connect with it because they need to sell this, and then you end up going to get that villa, which then creates
100%. Yeah. I mean, 100%. It was like the momentum. It wasn't about the money, clearly, because I made almost nothing. It was about the momentum, and that agent was right. Like a lot of opportunities. If I hadn't created that momentum, because it was right before COVID.
Yeah.
Going in, because I had a few deals, not big deals, but like $1 million thing in West LA and da 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 da. If I hadn't if I hadn't listed that property and sat the open house where I got that buyer, I would have gone into the pandemic being like, fuck.
Yep. It's a trip.
It's a trip.
And you think about like how many people did do that, right?
Yeah.
And whenever they say the markets that are like these scary markets, these like when the pandemic first hit, everyone's like, what the hell do I do?
Yep.
The agents that like dive in, the people that dive in during that time, like they're the ones that win long term.
1,000,000%.
It was like that's when we saw the most growth as far as our company, because we just tripled down on our marketing efforts when everybody pulled out.
Yes.
And that's where we had so much growth, right? So it's like this same thought process is like, what's the Warren Buffett quote? Be fearful when everybody's greedy, be greedy when everybody's fearful.
Oh, that's good.
You know what I mean?
I haven't
like
heard
this,
that. I like that.
This thought process of like when everybody's pulling out, it's probably when you should go in because you're going to get the best opportunity.
Yep.
But when everybody's going in, you should probably...
Yeah, just chill.
Yeah, exactly. So that's interesting. So then fast forward from there to what, 4 or 5 years later, you're listing $20 million plus properties and doing all these estates. Like what was that shift from like, the million, the $4 million transactions to the ultra luxury?
So after I got that listing in the hills behind Chateau, Erin Kerman's like head recruiter, head of talent, I got a text from a stranger basically.
Yeah.
And she's like, hey, my name's Kayla. I work for Erin, and he'd love to meet with you to talk about your future in luxury real estate. So I'm like, who is this? I'm like, LinkedIn. I'm like, oh, she's really who she says. So I met with her. She was super pleasant, and she was like, he'd love to meet with you. And I was like, I'm honestly not looking to make a change, but I talked to I knew who he was. My friend was his photographer, so I knew who he was, and I was like, I would be foolish not to meet with him.
Yeah, exactly.
So met with him. I roll into the office. He's got like huge crystals. This guy just feels abundant. Yeah. And I sat down, and he was super cool. He's like, and I actually walked in on a really good month. It was like April 2021, and I had just sold my first $5 million house, which was a new construction in Manhattan Beach, and it actually appraised for like 6 figures above what we got it. So it was like really great spot on the Hill Street section. And I'd done that. I had a $10 million month. And so he's like, where do you see yourself this year? In the next 12 months, I was like, I'd love to do like 20, 25 million or something like that. And he was like, you should be doing 50 or 60 million. He's like, I see what you've done in a short amount of time, in a year and change. Like he's like, you just need a big listing. You need like a $15 million listing to set you up. And I'm sitting in the chair and I'm like thinking like, how am I going to get a $15 million listing?
You're like, yeah, sure. That's what anybody needs.
Yeah.
Thanks, Aaron.
I was like, that's all I need? Great. Can you give it to me?
Aaron's also like one of the coolest, chillest guys.
So chill.
Like you would never guess, like you meet him, like you never guess he's selling these $100 million, properties. But yeah, so it's funny.
So funny. So he's like, listen, he's like, you have the look. He's like, I can teach you how to do that. And like, I can help you brand yourself and blah, blah, blah. Made the switch
That's from Rodeo to
to Compass Aaron
Compass,
Kerm,
Aaron
AKG.
Kerman. Yeah.
And so I kept, so actually, I had a couple brand new agents at that, like right at that moment, who were like, we would like brand new, never done one single lease. And they were like, hey, I hired one person, great guy, to be my assistant, licensed realtor, and a couple other agents. And I was like, well, what I'll do is I'll build like a mini team within AKG, blah, blah, blah. And in concept, it was a great idea, but I didn't really have like infrastructure set up. I didn't have like systems set up. I was like doing pretty well, but like, so I started mentoring these brand new agents, and I spent like half of my time teaching them. And then all of a sudden, like my sales started to go down and then the rate started to go up.
Yeah.
And I was like, oh my God. So, but actually the first thing that I did, Aaron was like, you should coach with my real estate coach. Coached with him for 3 years. And he was extremely helpful. But I realized, I was like, okay, I'm like listing like $2 million houses. It's fine, but I need to focus on my clients and not, most agents don't make it, as we know.
Yeah.
So 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 that was like, I'd say like the next 12 months had like a decent 12 months, nothing amazing. And April of 2022, right when the rate started to go up, I was like, you know what? I'm going to just focus on my business because I just don't have the bandwidth and blah, 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 blah. And I realized that it's a game of conversations. How many conversations can you have with people who can buy or sell, or refer you to people who can buy or sell?
Yep.
And so I would go to all the social gatherings and parties and genuinely excited about real estate, and some referrals started to pop in. Then it was probably the following spring. That fall, so like that summer, I had a couple big deals in escrow. I was like, I felt like I had made it.
Yeah.
I took a month off, went to like the Middle East.
Classic real estate move. Classic real estate agent move.
I'm staying at
like, I'm set. I'm good.
Staying at 5-star resorts, spending more money I've ever spent before, getting massages. Like my dry cleaning bill at the hotels was ridiculous. I come back. Right before I came back, I had like double-ended. I was just about to close a double-ended like deal. That fell apart in the last day of contingencies. Another one fell apart. Then when I finally came back, like September 2022, the phone kind of stopped ringing. And then I was like, and then I had a dream, and I'm from Brooklyn. I'm on the Brooklyn Bridge, driving really slowly. I have this really eerie feeling, and then all of a sudden, the suspension cables snap, and the bridge drops, and I'm like, whoa. And intuitively, I was like, all right. It almost felt like the rug had been pulled again in the film business. I was like, I need to make some changes. So for the first time ever, I started door knocking, and I started calling expireds. Not for a long time, for maybe a month. Yeah. But I did it diligently, 3 times a week. No business came from any of that. I didn't do it for that long, but it just wasn't everyone has their own style.
Yeah.
And I want to be in my zone of genius at all times, and that's generally like being in front of people, like in person.
Yep.
Not on the phone. And so it was a Sunday, a friend of mine, entrepreneur, had been doing like 3 years in a row, it was almost like a pub crawl, but it wasn't like it was like a healthy pub crawl, like on bikes through like Venice.
Yeah.
And this
so
guy,
it's like exercising before you drink.
Yeah. But
that's what made it healthy.
It made it so healthy. And so like this guy comes up to me, he has like this fly like kimono on. I was like, that's really cool. What is that? He's like, oh, this is my company. We're we exchanged information. He reached out a couple days later and he's like, let's grab a coffee. We grab a coffee. He's like, tell me more about what you do. I tell him blah, blah, blah. A couple months later, we'd kept in touch.
Yeah.
He calls me and I was like, hey, let me call you back. I forgot to call him back. The next day he's like, hey man, my dad's looking to sell his 100-acre winery. Would you be open selling it? Yes. So I pulled Aaron into that. So Aaron, November 2022, formed Christie's. I was one of 2 agents on a huge team that decided to stay at Compass.
Yeah.
Almost everybody stayed. I still had a great relationship with Aaron. And I was like, hey, man, I run my business off this app. This would be very disruptive to my clients, my CRM. I'd have to change the whole thing. Like, I would love to do more business in a different way, bring you into listings, blah, blah, blah. I actually go out on the first listing appointment myself. Goes great. I gift the sage. Loving it. And I had just filmed, Aaron was, I don't know if you know Matt Adamo. Matt's like Aaron's buyer's agent.
Yeah.
Awesome dude. I just filmed content with Matt and this other agent also named Matt at this palatial like French chateau in Bel Air and in Murdago Estates. And that's where Rupert Murdoch has a house.
Yep.
It's wild. And we shot this like really cool, I'll show it to you sometime, really cool video. We're like in the tub, we're having a blast. I'm like flying down the halls. This place is insane. And the owner of the winery lives right down the block. So I showed him this. And I was like, it's going to be a tough sale because the fire insurance on this property is $500,000. He's like, I know, because so is mine. And I'm like, cool. He's like, do you think Aaron would be interested in selling this winery with you? And I took that as French for, I'll give you the listing if you bring in Aaron.
Yeah, exactly.
So I was like, yeah, I think so. Bring in Aaron. We list it. Spectacular winery, amazing wine, like award-winning wine. It's the best winery in LA County for sure. It's in Santa Clarita, but LA County. And I spent a lot to market it. We got some great content, great photos, blah, 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 blah. And that was my first, we listed it at 15. That was my first, like, above 10.
How'd you choose the price point?
It wasn't my choice. I would have listed it at like 12.5. But the seller who makes all the decisions, it's like, that's the number.
Yeah.
I was like, all right, I was like, are you sure? He was like, I'm sure. I was like, okay. We had somebody who was basically ready to go at 10.
Yeah.
We ended up not selling it. It just, the P&L wasn't quite, it's a business. It was a business, 100 acres. There was property on it. It was a complicated deal, but mainly people would buy it for the cash flow.
Yeah.
And the cash flow wasn't quite there. But that was the first bigger listing that I got. And, a bunch of the bigger Instagram handles started to pick it up. And that was like my first luxury listing. Then about 6 months later, there's this couple in Malibu. It was that house that I had just shown you. And they were rebuilding. There was this epic estate on a lot of land in Big Rock, Malibu. Really, really special.
Yeah.
Celebrity ownership. Sally Fields owned it, Olivia Newton-John, James Gunn, CEO of MySpace. Like, it was like constantly big people. And then my people, I knew this couple tangentially, but not really, but a lot of mutual friends. And so I went in and, did a little dog and pony show. I brought my publicist who had just done a piece on Harry and Meghan's place in Montecito. And I ended up, I did the first meeting. They were like, this is cool. Chris Cortazzo is interested in representing this as well. So then I was like, Aaron, blah, blah, blah. So we listed that.
Yeah.
And that was 25. And so anyway, initially I didn't have the confidence to do it myself. And I wasn't sure if the client had confidence in me to list it either.
Yeah.
And so then I got to a place where I was like, I know I can do this myself, and I am going to do this myself. And it's all about conversations. It's all about... So what I started to do is, about a year and a half ago, I went on a really extravagant, we bought out the Four Seasons Serengeti, like just our group. And there were a lot of billionaires. There was like 150 people, and I think there were 8 billionaires on the trip.
Oh, wow.
Yeah. And I realized, I was like, this is an investment. And I would rather spend my money on these big experiences with ultra high net worth people than pay for Zillow leads.
Yeah.
Or, and off the back of that trip, I had one sale for sure. There's a huge developer on that trip who I knew a little bit before, but we got closer on the trip. He introduced me to his mentor, who wrote a book called Ninja Selling, which is a well-known book.
Yeah, well, really great book.
Great book,
yeah.
Amazing book. I read that book, then I flew to Colorado, did an installation with Larry Kendall, who wrote the book, then started coaching with one of his coaches, and then things started to really take off.
Yeah.
And referrals started to flow in. Yeah, and last week I just listed a $50 million house in Beverly Hills, which is a pretty great. It's one of the nicest houses in LA, for sure. And things have changed.
I think it's interesting because what's evident throughout your journey has been finding the right mentor.
Yes.
Like, I think there's so many people that try to do this business all on their own without the right mentors.
Yep.
And then they find themselves stuck.
Yes.
And like what you've done, I mean, it's like whether or not people will see that or not is like those first phone calls that you made to those 7 people or whatever.
Yep.
And then that one guy that's like, do this, go to this open house, go to this listing, yada, yada. You go and you take this listing because you weren't going to take it, but he said, just trust me.
Yeah.
So you trusted someone that had experience, a mentor, to be able to guide you there. And then once you were able to go to the next stage, and then it was like, even when you went with Aaron, he's like, hey, you need to call my guy.
Yep. And
you're like, got it. Sounds good.
Yeah.
Which is a superpower, because there are so many people. I mean, I said this at that conference that I was just telling you about that Aaron was at, that spoke at. It's like, I told this to the crowd. I'm like, look, dude, like, you guys, everyone comes to this conference, and I spoke at over 100. I had over 100 speaking engagements over the last 24 months, and I'm like, so every conference I speak at, every time there's at least 1 or 2 gyms that I take, and it changes my business.
Yes.
So I know that the times that I'm not paying attention or whatever, like, people are getting gyms.
Yes.
But you have to implement.
Yes. You have to.
You have to execute.
Yep.
We can tell you everything.
Yeah.
But if you don't execute, it doesn't matter.
Yeah.
Right? And so, like, I think that's the superpower, is like hearing, okay, hey, here's my piece of advice. You're like, got it, I'll do it.
Yep.
Versus you could turn around and let the ego take over and say, nah.
No, I got this myself.
Correct. Which is, I mean, to say, look, people go their whole careers wishing they can list a property like the $50 million property, right? Like,
yeah.
Like, people wish they could list a $15 million. People wish they could list a $4 million property, right? Like, you know, there's people that wish they could list $1 million property.
Yeah.
Right? And I think the fast forward effect is because of the fact that you learn from experiences in life, but you don't need to learn from your own.
Yeah, exactly. Cut the learning curve.
Exactly. And you've taken it and you said, okay, let me go learn from all these other people's experiences, and then take the best of what I like and then do me with those.
Exactly. Yeah, make it my own. That's when I realized, I was like, this is all great advice. You know, Dave, my coach, for years, you know, he's unbelievable with language. You know, there are 100 ways. If something cancels, there are 100 ways to explain how it canceled, and you'll get 100 different responses. What's the best way that you can deliver that information so that the client knows you've got their best interest, and they'll continue working with you?
Yeah.
And I realized, like, okay, this is great information. Let me synthesize it, and it's like making like a stew, and like throw a little bit of me in there, mix it up, and serve it on a platter.
Yep.
And so I realized there's this school of thought, it's called human design. Everyone has different personality types. My personality type is a projector. About 20% of the population were projectors. And so as projectors, like I love so much of what Tony Robbins says. And also, as a projector, if you like go into a situation like in kind of a dominant way, like bull in a china shop, you're going to have terrible results. Yeah. So what I do, as a projector, you're supposed to wait for the invitation. It doesn't mean you're just like waiting on the sidelines hoping someone calls you. It's putting yourself in a position to be recognized and then invited in.
Yeah.
And so certain things like wearing a hat or certain watch or whatever it is, people will approach you And then what I do is like I feel out this invitation. I'm like, is this an aligned person? Do I want to work with this person? When I first started working, I wanted to work with everybody.
Yeah, exactly.
Now, there is like a litmus test. Do I want to, have a meal with this person? Am I excited when they call me on the phone? Like, do I want to connect with this person? Is this just a quick little transaction, or could this be a friendship, or could this be a 30-year relationship where we do 15 transactions?
Yeah.
That's the relationship that I want. That's the client I want. So I have learned to put myself publicly in a place to be seen and then invited in.
Yep.
And then that has shifted a ton for me, where it's like I'm not, throwing out 100 different lines and like fishing expedition style and like seeing who bites. I'm kind of magnetizing myself and pulling in the right clients and people and opportunities. And it's been great.
I love that. It's a big piece of like attracting versus chasing.
Yeah.
Right? Like, it's like, actually, so right before you came here, you saw me get off the boat with a couple of my agents. And, and it's, we do a mastermind after our team meeting every week with people that have hit certain criteria, right? And that was the conversation today is learn to attract versus chase.
Yes, totally different energy.
It's a completely different energy. And when you master that, what ends up happening is people start asking you, wait, so what do you think about this? And then it gives you the runway to have that conversation versus me trying to sell you.
Yeah, totally.
Which is like if I call you, I'm like, hey, you want to buy houses today? It's like, dude, leave me alone, Cyrus. Stop selling me.
Yeah.
But if I call you and I might have a conversation with you about life and so on and so forth, and then you ask me, what about you? What have you been? Oh, it's been great, blah, blah, blah. And then I tell a story about how I helped somebody else.
Yep. Exactly.
Then they're like, wait a second. I relate to that.
Yeah.
How can I be part of that or whatever, right? And then they ask you the question, and then you do your thing.
Exactly.
Then you never have to sell a day in your life, and it's fun.
It's so much fun.
I'm a big believer in the same thing though. Is like you work with people you like. People work with people they like, and you should also work with people you like. Like
everybody wins.
I had an agent that she was brand new agent when she came to me. I remember she is like her first year and she was crushing it. I think she was at like 15, 16 million.
Nice.
And she came to me and she goes, Cyrus, I have to ask you a question. Or no, she texted me. She was like, I have to ask you something after the meeting. I was like, okay. I was like, what's going to happen here? Like you think of all these different scenarios.
Yeah, she's leaving.
Yeah, like what's going on? She goes, hey, she made it so serious. She was like, hey, can I talk to you about the thing? I'm like, yeah. And I was like, you want to talk here? She's like, maybe in your office. And I'm like, okay. So
okay.
What is going on here? Like, great. So we go and she's like, all right, so is it okay if I dye this streak of my hair purple? I'm like over here thinking she's going to leave.
Yeah.
She's like, I'm like, I just helped you grow your whole business.
Right,
like,
she's getting poached?
No. And I go, I would love that. I said, let me ask you this. Do you like it?
Yeah.
And she's like, yeah. And I was like, okay, if you like it and it makes you happy, then screw everybody else.
100%. She'll attract the clients who like that version of her.
Exactly. I said, because the people that you're going to work with are going to like that. You want to vibe with that. I had another conversation with one of my friends. She got multiple kids now, but she was just found out she was pregnant with her first kid, and she was so nervous to tell her clients that she was pregnant.
Yeah.
And I go, do you realize that if you like if they are not happy for your happiest moment in life, then why are you even talking to them?
Yeah.
Like, why even have a conversation with them? If they're not happy for your happiest moment, I said, is this not the best thing she's like, it's the best thing that's ever happened to me. Then screw them.
Yes, exactly.
Because
if they're not celebrating you,
then why are you working with them? Like, for a paycheck, you'll get a paycheck from people that actually celebrate you, that enjoy being around you, that are happy that you're having a baby.
Yes.
And I think once you start realizing that and you start leaning into like being who you are authentically, you attract the people that want to work with you, and that's what makes the business go like this.
Yep, that's
real
like
fast.
Geometric growth.
Real fast.
Yes.
And I think that's what you've done. So going into the the conversation that we just had is like, you've done that through your business. I mean, you've had relatively a short career to be able to grow, to have the business that you've built. It's the rapid growth is because, one, you're hearing from mentors and you're like you said, cutting that learning curve, but also you're authentically yourself.
Yep.
You know?
And that's attractive.
There's a lot of agents that want to go into listing appointments 100%. There's a lot of agents that want to go into listing appointments and take Sage in and say, hey, here's it. But they don't want to feel like, they don't
want to be judged.
Correct.
Yeah.
But hey, if they don't like it, then
that's fine.
Cool. There's a lot of agents that are out there, and there's a lot more homes I could sell.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? And I think that is a secret weapon, especially getting into the ultra luxury. Because the ultra luxury also are people that have been through a lot of BS.
Yes.
So they see BS, and they see when you're not authentically yourself. And that's, even if they don't realize it, they realize it subconsciously, and then they don't trust you for some reason.
Yes.
But when you're authentically yourself, it's
so refreshing. Yeah, it's like, a lot of, I've heard this from a bunch of, sellers, where it's like, realtors are like used car salesmen. Yeah. And it's like, some realtors are. Yep. And when you're not, how refreshing that is. I told a client last week, I said, listen, one thing that separates me from the crowd is that I care about you and I care about your home. Legitimately. Yep. I'm not here this is not just a transaction. Yep. Ideally, this is a wonderful experience, and then I'm your family's realtor for life. Yeah.
I mean, and that's the thing, is like, I say that all the time. It's like, look, like, if I was just worried about this paycheck, then I'd probably go get a more expensive house to go sell if I'm worried about one paycheck.
Yeah.
But I'm worried about this and then everybody that you're going to send me.
Yes.
This business is relationship. I realize that if I do well here, then I'm going to make a lot more money over here. We're going to make money together.
Yep.
But you're going to help me make a lot more money. So why would I ruin that relationship over one transaction? It doesn't make sense.
Zero.
But there are a lot of agents that ruin it over one transaction because it's short-sightedness.
Yeah. I feel like a lot of agents are playing checkers and like we're playing chess.
Yeah.
It's like 6 moves ahead. Yeah. Where does this go?
Exactly. I love that. I have 2 more questions for you.
Yeah.
One question is where can people find you if they want to connect with you?
AdamBrowerEstates.com, and the easiest way would just be Instagram at Adam Brawer, Brawer.
Awesome. Perfect. I was going to ask you to spell it, so it's perfect. And then my next question is someone is at a point in their lives where they felt like everything was going perfect and then it all crashes. And they're trying to figure out what their next move is. What piece of advice would you give them?
I would say slow down, get really quiet, and listen. Don't make any rush moves or judgments. If you don't know what your next step is, don't make a decision. Wait until you have some clarity, some perspective, and then move from that space.
I love that.
Thank you.
I love that. That's it's very easy to, I think, the unknown is uncomfortable.
Yeah.
And so we chase being comfortable.
Yep.
And it's hard to sit in the uncomfortable.
It's so hard. It's so uncomfortable.
Exactly. So a lot of people will, rather than sitting in the uncomfortable till they figure out what they want to do, they just chase the first exit strategy that they can find.
Yep.
Which is sometimes just a Band-Aid fix when you need stitches.
Yeah. Like, let's get some surgery. Surgery won't be pleasant, but you'll heal much, much better.
Exactly. Long term, you'll be better. Yeah. But short term, it'll hurt for a little while, and you'll be, maybe you're on crutches or in a wheelchair, but long term, you're going to be good. You can run.
Yeah. This is a marathon. None of us are sprinting. Those who are sprinting, they're going to burn out.
Nipsey's behind you.
I noticed that.
It's a marathon, not a sprint. That's my thing. Yeah. So it's 100%. Dude, I appreciate you so much for being on today.
Thank you for having me.
Thank you.
It's been real.
Likewise. Thanks, bro.